first thing I want to talk about is the fact that the circumstances of our life are things that we largely don't have any control over. There are things that happen. They may happen outside of us. They may be things like the weather. They may be things like who our parents are. It could be what somebody says to us or what somebody does. And for many of those things, we don't have any control over those things. And so really the way that we approach our circumstances, the way that we think about them, the way that we react to them or act towards them is where we're going to find that, that differentiation between bitter and better. And so I want to share a couple of experiences. Let me start with a recent week. I work at FedEx, and FedEx, we work overnight, and some nights are not as great as other nights. So for example, Thursday night, I work Monday through Thursday. So Thursday night, we were going to be experiencing bitter cold temperatures in Indianapolis. And I started getting text messages that some of the key players from my team were not going to be in. They had called in. And I remember thinking it's going to be a crazy night. And it was absolutely a crazy night. And I'll talk a little bit more about that and how to approach it in a few minutes. But the way that I can choose to think bitter thoughts about that. And I have no control. I can't go to my team member's house and drag him out of bed and tell him that no, he's not as sick as he says he is. I just have to deal with the situation. And so I can deal with it in a bitter way or in a better way. Let me tell you a story about my wife. This was one of the most transformational experiences in my life about 14 years ago, 15 years ago. She was pregnant with our youngest son and about 8 months pregnant. She had called me up. She was out delivering newspapers trying to earn a few extra dollars so we could pay some bills down. He was number 5 in our family. Our kids were born in alphabetical order, which is a fun fact. We have Allison. I don't know which number we're going to go with. Allison, Brittany, Carissa, Dalton, and Edison. So this is Edison. So she was out delivering papers. Carissa wasn't feeling well, so she stayed home from school, and Dalton was not old enough to go to school. And so it was the two of us at home. And then my sweet wife was out delivering papers trying to earn a few extra dollars. And she called me up and said she was not feeling very well. And it was bad enough that her vision was kind of blurred. She couldn't see the paper that she was looking at to know where she was supposed to deliver these papers. She did this a lot of times as a substitute. And so she called me up and said, can you come get me? I want you to drive me around. You can read the paper so I know where to go to drop off these papers, and then we can earn money. This was in the early days of cell phones. She was not great at carrying the cell phone with her. And so as I gathered my 2 kids together, and it was mid-November, and we had to find coats and shoes, and kids at that age, 2 and about 7, just are not good at putting their coats and shoes where they're supposed to go. So it took us a few minutes. I finally was able to get them in the car. We got down the street. I had no idea where she was. We were going to meet at a church, and I called to tell her we were on our way. No answer. We went to the church parking lot. She wasn't there. I called again. No answer. And she had told me where she was. So I drove. It was about a mile from the church. I drove down to the street where I knew she had started. Well, I had no idea where she was. And the street was blocked by a fire truck and an ambulance. So I couldn't go through. And I looked around. My first thought was something horrible's happened to her. But I looked around. I couldn't find any evidence that she was around or that anything had happened. And I thought, well, whoever lives in that house there, something horrible must have happened. And I feel bad for them, but I got to go see if I can find my wife. So I backed up. And as I backed up to turn around, I was able to see around a truck that was in the driveway. And go ahead and pull that picture up, Mark. This is what I saw. So that's a firefighter. You don't see it in the picture, but they were using the jaws of life to pull her out of the car. And my first reaction, this is a long time ago. I didn't know I was going to get emotional about this. My first reaction was I had to run up and see if she was okay. As I ran out, there was a police officer who stopped me. He said, "Sir, you can't go up there." I said, "That's my wife." And so his first concern was, is she diabetic? No, she's not. Does she have seizures? No, she doesn't. So I don't understand why, but he left and another one came up and he said, is she diabetic? Oh, does she have seizures? No. A third one came up. Is she diabetic? Same questions. No. Does she have seizures? No. And it finally crossed my mind. I need to tell them that she's pregnant. She's 8 months pregnant. And he seemed to think that that was important for them to know. So he took off. They told me I couldn't get any closer. And so I just waited. I couldn't do anything. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to freak out because I don't know if there's anything to freak out about. So a lot of things happened. They took her away with lights and sirens. They told me, don't try to keep up. I called my boss, told him I wasn't coming to work. I called my father-in-law. He came and got the kids. I went to the hospital. I'd never been to the hospital before, so I didn't know where I was going. I went through this maze, finally got to the emergency room. And when I told them who I was there to see, the sweet girl at the emergency room desk went back and brought the chaplain to the front. Well, the chaplain, when the chaplain comes to meet with you, it's not good news. And he invited me to go into the room, which was probably only about 10 feet by 15 feet. There were couches and chairs around the room. As I was sitting down, he asked me to tell him the story. Tell me what happened. And I know enough about medical rules. I knew the chaplain, even if he knew anything about what had happened to my wife, he wasn't going to tell me. He was going to wait for the doctor to come in. And as I waited, a firefighter walked by with a cup of ice water. Here, you may need this. And so everything was adding up to, this is not a good situation. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to freak out. This poor chaplain doesn't deserve my frustration if I were to let loose on him. And I thought, I'm just going to be as patient as I can. After I finished telling him what I knew, he said, well, the first thing I want to say is congratulations on the birth of your son. And I thought that might have been a result. And he said, and I'm going to get the doctor down here. He'll tell you what happened to your wife. What happened to my wife? That sounds very final. And I wasn't quite sure what to expect. And the doctor came in, and the first thing he asked me was, is your wife a Latter-day Saint? And I said, yes, she is. And he let me know that he was a member of the church as well. He said, just so you know, you had a Melchizedek priesthood burning. And I felt instant peace, instant relief. I still did not know what was going on. I didn't know if she was alive. I didn't know anything at all other than I felt this instant peace. I think it was a tender mercy from my Father in heaven. And he told me very briefly what had happened. And then he finally said, and she is alive. Do you want to see her? Yes, of course I want to go see her. So I went and saw her, and it was a very long, intense day in a lot of ways. And as I told the story to people in the ward and family, and as I recounted the facts as I had experienced them, there were several people that expressed how awful this was. And I said, actually, no, that accident saved her life. We didn't know at the time that she had eclampsia, which is high blood pressure. When they took her blood pressure, it was 200 over 100, which is dangerously high. And she's the type of person that's not going to call for help for herself. So had she been at home, if she didn't have this newspaper job, she would have felt lousy. She would have gone upstairs, and she probably would not have survived the afternoon. Then my sweet oldest daughter, Allison, would have come home to find her mother passed out or dead. And based on the urgent care that she needed, that's the result that I anticipate would have happened. And so the way I have decided to look at this is that accident actually absolutely saved her life. The house that she hit, that you saw in that picture, the person that was there told me she's never home during the day. She was working on a project at home, happened to get out to go to lunch, decided, no, I'm going to wrap things up, then I'll go. It was right when she finished that the car hit her house. And this sweet woman pointed to the 4 houses around her, and she said, they're always home, but nobody else was home. She happened to be there to call for an ambulance. When they got to the hospital, there was an obstetrician on staff in the emergency room that happened to be, and I use air quotes, happened to be in the emergency room right when my wife got there. There is no accident. It was absolutely a series of miraculous events that led to her urgent care. And she is fine. She had both of her ankles that were broken. It was quite an adventure. But because I knew that her this series of events was absolutely divine in a lot of ways. She was blessed. Our family was blessed. It was hard. Absolutely, it was hard. I had things in my life that I wasn't ready for a wife in a wheelchair and with an infant son and 4 other kids. Life was hard. I'm going to change things up a little bit, Mark, and let's just go to, well, let me, you can pull up the cow picture as I talk about my FedEx experience. I work at FedEx and we have our peak season from Thanksgiving to Christmas. I'm not allowed to take time off and our volumes get higher and what the days or the nights get longer. And it just could be a really intense, really frustrating, really exhausting period of time. And to make things even more challenging, one of my peer managers was out for a multitude of things. He was sick for a couple of weeks. He had surgery, so he was out for a couple of weeks. He had training, so he was out for several days. And so I had to pick up his slack. Now remember, the circumstance of our lives are it's things that we don't have any control over. So I can either have a bitter thought or I can have a better thought. So pull up the cow picture, Mark. Something that I know holidays are hard for a lot of people. This is a gift that my son gave me, and it may be hard to see, but this is a gift wrap cow ornament. You can see kind of the horns up at the top. The legs aren't really easy to see, but it's an ornament shaped like a cow. Now, my kids especially love getting cow gifts. And the reason for that was as I was taking Allison out to college, this is about 8 years ago, just randomly, because I wanted her to think that there's something not quite right with her dad so that she would be careful about who she decided to introduce me to as she met boys. We were driving through the middle of nowhere, Iowa. I rolled down the window. There were cows in the pasture and I just started mooing. I started mowing at the cows. Moo! And there was no warning. It was just the two of us in the car. And she looked at me like, what is wrong? And I just decided to have some fun with it. I told her that we're communicating. So cows have become a thing. They've been kind of a mascot. So I got wrapped up like cows, this cow ottoman for Christmas. I got a cow Christmas sweater, which was wrapped up like a cow. I got a cow tie, not a tie tack, but a tie clip wrapped up like a cow. I got a cow print tie. I got cow print socks. I got cow games. I got all sorts of cow things. And the thing about cows is it's just a way for us to find it's a way for me to find joy. I know, and it is so fun for me to see how creative my kids get in their cow gifts. I've gotten cow pictures. That's what this picture is back behind me is something that Allison found at a thrift store. I've gotten cow mugs. I've gotten cow calendars. And it's just, I've decided that it's a way for me to take something like the stress of the holidays and think about things better instead of thinking about things bitter. The thing I want to leave you with is we can't often change what happens. We can't often. I was going to talk about opposition in all things. We have joy, we have sadness, and that's important. And you wouldn't want to feel joy about you wouldn't want to feel joy about everything. If you have something, if you have a dear friend pass away or a husband who passes away, You wouldn't want to find joy in his passing necessarily, but you might find joy in the moment. And so find the cows in your life that might help you find the joy in the moments. Find ways of looking at the things that happen that, yeah, things are tough. Life is hard, but there are ways that you can find the tender mercies, find the hand of God in the events of life. If you do that, you'll find what you're looking for. I know it. I know that you'll find the the joy in the difficulties. And as you do that, as we do that, we can make our lives better. We can make them better if we want. We can make them better and not better. When I share that, in the name of Jesus Christ.